Welcome to another episode of Untold Legends, where we explore the stories found within the world of video games, movies, comic books, and anything in between. Today, we'll be opening the pages of the DC comic book universe. One of the original founders of the Justice League, Aquaman, is finally starring in his own big-budget movie, so it's a great time to explore his underwater world. But this episode won't focus on the King of the Seven Seas himself. We're going to focus on his villains, more specifically the ones that will be making an appearance in the film. The Trench, Black Manta, and Ocean Master. Villains that haven't been just a threat to Aquaman, but a major threat to the entire planet Earth. One of the newer creations in Aquaman's rogues gallery are the ferocious undersea creatures, known collectively as the Trench. Introduced in the New 52 Aquaman #1 in 2011. Although they may seem like mindless monsters, the Trench are much more than they initially seem to be. To understand where they came from, it's crucial to know the tragic history of the sunken city of Atlantis. Centuries ago, Atlantis was above ground, comprised of 7 different kingdoms, made up of different races, and ruled by Aquaman's ancestor, King Atlan. The king's brother Orin grew disgusted at having so many races living peacefully together as Atlanteans, and took the throne by force, murdering the king's wife and children. An injured Atlan retreated to the oceans and created multiple powerful weapons to reclaim Atlantis under his rightful rule. And years later, the king returned, killing his own brother and his queen. But Atlantis was plunged into a civil war that consumed it. Seeing his entire kingdom brought to ruin and grieving the loss of his family, Atlan used his powerful scepter to sink Atlantis and let it all die. Out of the 7 kingdoms of Atlantis, 4 were completely obliterated, and 3 survived. The 3 surviving kingdoms each evolved differently and adapted to underwater life. One of those kingdoms plunged into the depths of the Marianas Trench, the deepest natural point on the planet. Those survivors changed in the darkness of the ocean over the centuries, evolving into the Trench. Now a species relying almost completely on their primal instincts to feed, even going as far as cannibalism, willing to eat the bodies of their own slain members. The Trench became gifted with razor-sharp teeth that could puncture even the skin of superhumans, the ability to cause mild paralysis in humans, and enhanced strength developed from centuries of deep ocean pressure. Every member of the Trench looked similar, except for the Trench Queen and the Trench King. The Queen was an enormous member of the species that mostly stayed within the Marianas Trench, giving birth to numerous offspring, and the King focused on gathering food with his hunting parties. And the fast metabolism of the Trench requires them to consume 20 to 30 times their body weight to survive, making them an extremely dangerous threat to face in populated areas. While they have no obvious weakness, they are susceptible to injuries from sources of intense heat such as flare guns. The first time Aquaman faced the Trench, they had just massacred a boat filled with fishermen and attacked a local fishing community. The police called in Aquaman and Mera to come investigate, and they followed the trail of bodies to the lair of the Trench, where the bodies of the townspeople were being kept in cocoons for feeding purposes. But Aquaman was able to trigger a volcanic reaction with his trident, sealing the creatures within their caves with a large rock, and rescued the townspeople that were taken. But eventually, like any good comic book villains, the Trench would return. Another villain appearing in the Aquaman film is quite possibly Aquaman's most dangerous and recurring foe, Black Manta. Sometimes depicted as a treasure hunter, sometimes depicted as a mercenary, or even a terrorist. Black Manta first appeared in Aquaman #35 in 1967, and has gone through multiple different origin stories, very different from one another. At one point he was depicted as a man trying to take over the oceans to create an underwater paradise for the African American people of the surface world, a much more racially motivated character. Another version of the character was an autistic youth, locked away in Arkham Asylum, and he became obsessed with Aquaman after seeing him on TV. There was another version that was forced to work on a ship and developed a hatred for Aquaman after he saw him swim by without stopping to rescue him. But the most definitive version of Black Manta is a cruel, sadistic man fueled by a need for revenge. Years ago, the man behind the mask, David Hyde, was a pirate that attacked Aquaman's father, injuring him. And in a fit of rage, the young and inexperienced Aquaman retaliated and attacked David's father, accidentally killing the man in front of David. From this day forward, David swore he wouldn't rest until Aquaman and all his friends and family were dead. Using his expertise in mechanical engineering, he crafted a battle suit that enhanced his physical strength to superhuman levels. It also allowed him to easily survive the intense pressure of the oceans, and housed a telepathic scrambler and a wide assortment of weapons, such as a wrist-mounted spear gun and retractable blades. David also crafted a helmet that allowed him to breathe underwater and fire powerful optic blasts from its eye lenses. Armed with the tools he needed to battle Aquaman, he adopted the name Black Manta and set out on his quest for revenge.
What are you doing in Atlantis?
I'll kill you and everyone you ever loved.
Over the years, Black Manta cultivated a reputation for being a cold-blooded killer, butchering some of Aquaman's closest allies with absolutely no emotion. During a time when Aquaman was believed to be dead, Black Manta retired his criminal ways and even opened up his own fish market in an attempt to earn an honest living. But when he discovered Aquaman was alive once again, something triggered inside of him, and without hesitation, he murdered his customers in his own store and burned it down. Black Manta has even bested his nemesis in physical combat, and in one occasion successfully sliced off his hand, causing him immense pain. But one of the most shocking of Black Manta's crimes is an act that affected Aquaman directly, after he had kidnapped Aquaman's infant son. Unlike his father, Arthur Curry Jr. was unable to breathe outside of water, and Black Manta trapped him inside an air bubble and suffocated the child slowly. The murder of a child and Black Manta's cruel atrocities have been looked down upon by other DC Universe supervillains, but those same actions have also solidified him as a force to be feared, earning him a place in many supervillain teams, such as Lex Luthor's Legion of Doom. Black Manta, a villain that Aquaman unintentionally created, and one that will never rest, as long as the King of the Seven Seas breathes.
Once we've sunk the surface world, I'll slit his throat and claim the treasures of Atlantis.
And the main threat in the Aquaman film, Orm, also known as Ocean Master, first appearing in Aquaman number 29 in 1966. Ocean Master's history is tied directly to Aquaman by blood. Orm Marius is another character that has had several revised origins. Previous versions of the character represented him as a normal human being and high-tech sea pirate, to a powerless individual that was given magical Atlantean abilities by making a deal with the demon. In the most recent and definitive version of the character, Ocean Master is a full-blooded Atlantean and half-brother of Aquaman. Whereas Black Manta's primary motivation is revenge, Ocean Master's motivation is the throne of Atlantis itself, which he believes is his birthright. Before Orm was born, his mother Atlanta had left Atlantis and had a child with a human. The child was named Arthur Curry, and would one day grow up to be known as Aquaman. As Arthur grew, she left him with his father to protect him, and returned to Atlantis, where she was forced to marry the Atlantean Orvax, an abusive husband and tyrannical king. Orvax was jealous that she had a romance previously with a human, and eventually Atlanta gave birth to his son, a fully Atlantean child, Arthur's half-brother Orm. But Orvax's abuse would eventually catch up to him, when Atlanta drove his royal scepter through his heart, and when Orm saw his father's body, she convinced him it was the work of an assassin, and she took the throne as the Queen of Atlantis, until Arthur could take his place as king. In his youth, Orm grew up knowing about Arthur, and was furious that his mother's half-breed firstborn was considered to be the true heir to the throne, a fact that he couldn't accept, and he murdered her, forcing himself into the kingship.
I am queen, and war is not in my plans.
But it is in mine.
Ocean Master has many of the same abilities as Aquaman does, and his royal bloodline makes him one of the stronger Atlanteans. Just like his brother, he can naturally breathe underwater and move at incredible speeds. He's also armed with a powerful trident that can control lightning, and his helmet allows him to control massive amounts of water from the ocean, an ability he's used to create huge tsunamis and cyclones to threaten the world of the humans. Ocean Master's plots usually involve removing Aquaman from his role as King of Atlantis and naming himself king. But he also hates the surface world as much as he hates his brother, the world that his mother had escaped to. He's attempted multiple times to gather like-minded Atlanteans into forming an army of his own, and convincing them that the surface world is a threat to the oceans. His ultimate goal is to start a war with the entire surface world and spread the power of Atlantis threats to every corner of the globe. He's attempted to invade human cities with Atlantean soldiers, he's attempted to sink entire cities into the ocean, and he's been stopped by his brother, time and time again. And those are the DC Universe stories of some of the biggest threats that Aquaman has ever faced.
Outrageous.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button with all of your strength. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss any new content. You can follow me on social media or go into my community tab for updates. And for as little as $1 a month, you can support the channel directly on Patreon. This is Fabian, I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.